Welcome to Drunken Yogi News. Shit to pay attention to.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war. I'll be very blunt.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Drunken Yogi News. Let's get started. Today, from ScienceDaily.com, black holes are not ruthless killers, but instead benign hologram generators. Ohio State University research shows. So what they are saying is that after arguing for a long time that anything that breaches the event horizon of a black hole would be completely demolished, that these things are big, huge wrecking balls rolling around devouring the universe, that they might not be that. So they go on through the article showing the debate that's going on right now, whether or not when something hits the event horizon, it either gets laid out on the event horizon as a perfect match of what hit it, or it gets put in there as an imperfect match. This is the only debate going on according to this article right now in the Science. But what they are saying is that they are hologram generators rather than black holes as we know it. And crazy enough, they go on to say, the implication of the fuzzball firewall issues are profound. One of the tenets of string theory is that our three-dimensional existence, 4 dimensions if you count time, might actually be a hologram on a surface that exists in many more dimensions. So we might be looking at another fractal representation of the reality in which we find ourselves now. This is pretty crazy. Pretty radically changed from a couple years ago from what I understood what a black hole was. Moving from the biggest to the smallest, reality doesn't exist until you look at it. Pioneering quantum physics experiments finds. This is actually an old experiment of whether or not a photon acts as a particle or a wave. Depending on who looks at it, when they look at it, it decides to do different things. And again, they're reestablishing in this experiment that it doesn't do it. It doesn't make the decision until someone measures it, until someone looks at it. But the researchers found that the number wasn't calculated until after the atom had passed through the crossroads of the laser and decided which way to go. Though the atom had already decided whether it would behave like a wave or a particle, it wasn't decided which way it would go until it was measured, the research found. They go on to say the atoms did not travel from A to B. It was only when they were measured at the end of the journey that their wave-like or particle-like behavior was brought into existence. This is pretty crazy. And from the biggest thing we know to the smallest thing you know, we have no idea what's going on. Every day you look at the science literature of black holes or quantum physics and CERN dumping billions of dollars into every day to try and figure out what the smallest particle is, and the God particle, who was found or discovered or theoreticalized by a person who doesn't believe in God, and reportedly called it the goddamn particle, which the publishers didn't like, before it was turned into the God particle. While we have huge, we could be using this money much better than looking at black holes and singlets. But moving on, BBC reveals mind control experiment for choosing what to watch next. They are actually reading people's minds and opening The broadcast has revealed details of their latest tech experiment, which involves working with digital agencies to create a mind control TV prototype for the use of iPlayer, catch-up service. So what they're doing is putting a helmet on and allowing a person to control their TV with their thoughts. This is not the newest thing in the world, but the way that it is being pushed and publicized is pretty interesting as of right now, because there have been huge breakthroughs in mind plants, mind reading over the past couple weeks. So we go here to Intel's Mind interface reads up to 1,000 words. This Mind interface process is still fairly primitive, they say. It only works with concrete nouns within up to 1,000 word vocabulary. It can only tell the difference between two nouns at a time. In other words, the algorithm can't yet deduce on its own if a user is thinking of the word arm, but can figure out whether a user is thinking of arm or shirt, or any other nouns in its vocabulary. Intel tells us that the algorithm is accurate 9 out of 10 times. So it can't think of complex thoughts yet, but our technology is to the point where they can put a reader on the side of your head and pick out up to 1,000 different words in your mind right now. So that's on the exterior side of things, where they're just placing something on your head and you're outputting information with it like you would a mouse or a keyboard into a computer. But we also have other brain chips. This actually goes back to 2006. A new brain chip under development establishes new connections in the brains of a monkey in a region that controls movement. Scientists hope to eventually make a version that could help humans with movement disorders. What this does is goes into the brain, finds out where the gap is from your brain thinking it to your neurons to the spinal cortex to then deliver the message to the body for it to be able to do whatever they're thinking. So this little chip goes in. Scientists tested a tiny device with a computer chip placed atop of the head of the monkey. The device, called NeuroChip, interacts with the brain's motor cortex, where neurons direct the body's movement. So right now, in 2006, I say right now, in 2006, they're able to take the brain's thought, convert it into the motor cortex for the body to do its movements. This is in 2006 with, again, something you place atop the head. Now, let's look at injectable brain electronics. Needle injects healing electronics into brain. Researchers have built a tiny mesh-like electronic sensor, rolled it up into a hypodermic needle, and injected it into the brain. Mice for right now. The device takes fantastic electronic voyage, may soon be able to zap tumors, repair damaged spinal cords, and even connect parts of the brain like artificial synapses, which goes back to the monkey heads. This is an internal version of that technology from close to 10 years ago. They go on to say, the stiffness of flexible electronic sensors is 4 to 6 orders of magnitude bigger than the current electrons. Cells can penetrate through this mesh. As a result, the sensor does not provoke a response by the body's immune system. So now we have a method of implanting chips into the brain that it doesn't reject, that it can hopefully take a person's thought and convert it into motion for people who are paraplegic. But if it can do that, what if they could have a way to implant thoughts that aren't coming from the user but from an outside network, to then make the body pretty much an android? You would then have complete control over the person's body movement through an internal chip inside their brain that could control their motor functions, if not more. It's a little freaky. Moving on with freaky. British police scanned 90,000 concert goers at the Download Fest. They go on to say, at the music festival called Download, British police scanned 90,000 faces to look for criminals, and then promptly deleted them all. I hope that's just a bad joke. But they went in and face scanned everybody to be able to find the criminals walking through the festivals. So that's all festivals are at this point, because at Bonnaroo they chip you with an RFID, they scan your face to see if you have any crime, and they pick you up at your favorite festival. This isn't the first time that this type of technology has been rolled out in a festival type setting either. Last summer, Dig Boston reported that the Boston Calling's 2013 festival, the city tested people parsing software. So instead of just facial recognition, which if you turn away from the camera, the computer has a very hard time following you, they went forward with it and said, which look-through video footage matched skin tones, colored shirts, and other factors that people in the video could be tracked and identified. While there's less expectation of privacy in public than there is in private, it still feels a little unsettling. Yes, it does feel a little unsettling that we can scan 90,000 people and figure out who are the bad guys instantly. But bad guys still keep happening. I hope we can figure something out. But ending this on a cool note, still a little scary seeing that this is an AI dream. These are what Google artificial intelligence's dreams look like. Now these guys have been teaching Google artificial intelligence, not true AI yet, but how to look at a picture of a fork and understand its picture of a fork by showing them thousands and thousands and thousands of forks with pictures of forks to then have it layer on understanding of what a fork is. So what they did was they would then take it and they realized that the infrastructure, which they call ANN, was able to outsource an image of what the computer was going through. So each of the network's 10 to 30 layers extract progressively more complex information from the picture, from edges to shapes to finally the idea of a fork. Eventually, the neural network understands a fork has a handle and 2 to 4 tines. And if there are any errors, the team corrects the computer and says it's misreading it, and they try again. These are some of the pictures that they were showing it, with a heartbeat and an ant and a starfish, and these are the images that it generates. This goes back to our perception of how what we see is back here, not actually the visual input that our retina is receiving from the reality. What we want to do is check this out, and as we go down here, it shows horizon, trees, and leaves. I like the leaves one the most because it looks at the Fibonacci spiral coming out of the seeds of the sunflower and remembers that it saw the Fibonacci sequence within the chest of a bird's feather, so it automatically goes with a bird, but then it sees the twines coming out of the sunflower and construes that as multiple legs and puts an 8 to 12-legged bird together as its thought. Also, trees have buildings. So then they went in and add a fractal component to it. So every time it constructed this, it told it to do a zoom in, like a fractal, to a different iteration and try it again. And then iteration, try it again. Iteration, try it again. This is what it produced whenever it looked at a tree. Now, the craziest part of this, and I hope you go look at this for yourself, but if you ever go look at any of the shamans or ayahuasca art, this is incredibly similar. Well, that's it for this week. I hope sound quality got a little bit better. I plan on having a little bit more time to put this together next week, and I hope to see you then. Thanks.